What up, everybody, and welcome to Friday night. Friday. Couldn't get here fast enough, could it? Alright, we're going to do episode 2 of Friday Night Cold Beer Knife Fight. And tonight's cold beer of choice, Coors Light. Yeah, it's not fancy. That's my cheerleader beer of choice. But we're just going to relax a little bit and sip on a few of these. I hope you guys and gals are going to enjoy a cold one of your choice. Just remember, be a responsible drinker. Don't get in that car. Alright, tonight we're going to have a shootout between two standard bearers in the everyday carry folder category. Alright, what is an everyday carry knife? Well, an everyday carry knife is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. This is a knife that's comfortable to carry every day, no matter how you're dressed. It is utilitarian to the utmost. You can use it for just about any cutting task that you might need in your everyday carry. It's comfortable to use. It has a high performance value, and there are some very good knives in this category. We're going to compare two of the best tonight. Alright, first up is what many consider to be the standard bearer for the everyday carry category, and that is Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Alright, in the other corner, one that I consider to be just as much a standard bearer, just a little bit different, and that is the ColdSteel American Lawman. Now, I'm going to say up front, I'm going to give you guys some specs. I'm not going to get crazy with them. But these two are so close to each other. I mean, in every dimension, they're within an eighth of an inch or a few millimeters. Even on the weight, they're so close that it's really difficult to tell a difference in the hand with them. So, let's get these specs out of the way. On the blade length, you're at 3.47 inches for the Spyderco, 3.38 inches for the ColdSteel. Spyderco is a slightly longer blade, although not really that much longer of a cutting surface. Alright, blade stock thickness, 145 thousandths for the Spyderco versus 135 thousandths for the ColdSteel. The Spyderco has slightly thicker blade stock. Alright, blade width, 1.26 inches for the Spyderco or 1.2 inches for the ColdSteel. The ColdSteel's blade profile is slightly narrower. The Spyderco is slightly wider, mostly because of the blade design and the Spidey hole. Alright, handle length, 4 7/8 inches for the Spyderco, 4 3/4 inches for the ColdSteel. They're within an eighth of an inch of each other. Handle thickness, 460 thousandths for the Spyderco or 405 thousandths for the ColdSteel. The ColdSteel is not as thick. It's a little easier to carry in that respect. Alright, handle width, 1.13 inches for the Spyderco versus 1.49 inches for the ColdSteel. The Spyderco is a little narrower in the handle. Alright, closed width, 1.59 inches for the Spyderco versus 1.64 for the ColdSteel. Again, in the closed position, the Spyderco is a little narrower. It may be a little easier to get your hand in your pocket with the Spyderco in there. Overall length, 8 1/4 inches for the Spyderco, 8 1/8 inches for the ColdSteel, a difference of an eighth of an inch, which is negligible. And weight, 3.84 ounces for the Spyderco, 4.02 ounces for the ColdSteel. You're within a couple of tenths of an ounce, negligible in the hand. So as far as the specs go, just like I said, these two are so close. They're everything but exchangeable. Alright, exchangeable, interchangeable. They are so close, and both, you know what, I don't think there's a winner overall just on specs. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to get into materials. This Spyderco is one of the Blurple models. It's in the semi-translucent blue purple G10. It does have nested stainless liners in it, and it's a pretty knife. I love this. I love this G10. I really do. Some people don't like it, but I love it. It's got a finer texture to it that is grippy, but it is not coarse. It is well finished. No issues there. Like I say, it's lightweight. It's solid. It's not flexible in any way. All right. Onto the ColdSteel. Now, this ColdSteel, the American Lawman, is available in different handle colors. They're all G10. Nice slabs of G10. There are no steel liners on this. It's just the G10, and it feels just as solid as the Spyderco. I don't feel any difference in any sensation of solidity between the two. I think they're pretty much equal on that. Blade steel wise, you're in Carpenter's CTS XHP on the American Lawman, and that's an American made powder metallurgy stainless steel. It's a good high-end quality stainless. On the Spyderco, on the Blurple models, you're in Crucibles CPM S110V, which is another American made powder metallurgy stainless. It might be considered slightly higher end than the CTS XHP, although in real life use it's going to be a negligible difference, mostly because of the grind profile and edge profile. I think that some people believe that the S110V is a little more wear resistant, where the CTS XHP is a little tougher. Maybe a little more shock resistant. I have heard people say they have had issues with chipping in S110V. I've not had any issues, so I can't speak to that. I can tell you in my use, they are pretty much equal. There might be a slight edge in edge retention for the S110V. I'm going to say there's not really a clear winner there. People will have their opinions and may have slightly different uses and results than I do. All right. So, and as far as materials go, it's a wash. These guys are pretty much equal in my book. G10 with a higher end CPM type stainless steel. Both of them high performance in that respect. Now, let's go to ergos, shape. All right, we'll do the handles first. Really, these two knives are a lot alike. The Spyderco is a little more organic handle shape in that the curves are a little softer and more organic, where on the ColdSteel they're a little sharper, and honestly I don't know how to describe it. It just doesn't have the same sort of flow to it. Aesthetically, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other as far as the handle shape goes. For me personally, I prefer the shape of the ColdSteel for one reason. It is more comfortable for me to use the forward choil on this design. For me, it is more comfortable. Not to say that the Spyderco is not comfortable. By golly, that thing is comfortable in hand. The forward choil is not quite as deep, but I will say this. I do prefer the thumb ramp design on the blade due to the high placement of the Spidey hole. I do love that thumb ramp as far as that goes. But overall, I prefer the handle shape on the ColdSteel. Now, as far as the blade shape on the ColdSteel, you've got a high hollow grind drop point where the point is high. The drop is not, too awful pronounced. It's not dropped too low to the center of the handle. It gives you some straight edge here and then a lot of belly to work with. The high hollow grind makes it an efficient cutter. It has a thin edge. It does not have as pronounced a tip. So if you want something with a more pronounced tip, you might prefer the Spyderco. Although on this knife, the tip is not as thin as on the Spyderco and should be a little bit stronger. Now, the Spyderco has Spyderco's classic sort of leaf-shaped, and you know, I don't know what people call this blade shape. I call it a clip point. It's like an extreme clip point where it's clipped all the way from the point, almost the entire length of the blade up to the top of the radius of the spider hole. It is a high flat grind. It is a full flat grind and does have a thinner tip. It is a more acute, thin tip. So like I say, if you prefer a knife with a thinner, pointier tip, the Spyderco is the way to go, as long as you respect that thinness and you don't try to do any prying with it. Spydercos are notoriously bad prying knives. And I'm going to tell you right now, I do not pry at all, zero, with any folding knife, ever. Ever. If I need to pry something, I'll get a stick and pry it before I'll use a folding knife. I'm sorry, I just don't do that. I'll grab something else that's actually made to pry with. But that's just me. Alright, so as far as ergos on the handle, like I say, I personally prefer the ColdSteel. It has a narrower handle that's wider, or a thinner handle that's wider. And I prefer the larger forward choil. The Spyderco is comfortable. I preferred the thumb ramp on it. And so, you know, ergos, it's going to be a personal thing. I prefer the ColdSteel. Blade shape, you know what? I don't care about, well, whatever. I like both of them. To me, they have two different uses. The ColdSteel has got a little bit, even though it's a thinner blade stock, to me feels like it's a little more heavy duty because of the grind. You carry more thickness out towards the tip, whereas the Spyderco, hands down, is the slicier of the two, in my opinion. So that's a split. It depends on what you want to use it for. Now, the next thing, the lock type on them. Now, I'm going to preface this segment by saying I am a huge fan of Andrew Demko's triad lock design as used by ColdSteel. I think it's pretty much understood within our knife enthusiast community. It's pretty much the strongest production lock-in system that there is, as far as I know. I'll say arguably the strongest, because there's always somebody out there that's going to insist that something else is stronger. But in my opinion, from what I've handled, which is literally thousands of knives, it is the strongest feeling lock-in system to me, and it is the one that I do not worry about at all. It never enters my mind that a triad lock knife is going to unlock and fold on my hand under use. Now, that said, the Spyderco with the compression lock is the favorite lock choice for the everyday carry crowd, because not only is it a strong lock, an improvement over a liner lock, as it's basically the same thing as a liner lock on the back side, but the lock-in tab is trapped, and that does make it stronger and more stable than a standard liner lock. But the best thing about it is it's just fun to mess with. I mean, you've got all these different, spidey flicks and nose picking flicks, and inside out and upside down opening systems, and it's just fun to use. It's a very fluid, very easy lock and pivot interface, and it's a lot of fun. Now, that said, on the ColdSteel with the triad lock, at least in my sample, once you take the lock pressure off of it, it is free fall smooth. It is easy to flick it open one hand. There's no play in the lock. Not a big deal. There's also no play in this lock here of any type. I just think that in my instance, I prefer lock strength over a smooth lock. And the lock strength on the triad lock is better than the compression lock, although the compression lock is smoother and is more fun. So, again, it's a personal opinion. There's no clear winner here. Both of them are strong with the edge and strength going to the ColdSteel. Both of them are smooth with the edge and smoothness going to the Spyderco. And also, some people have a difficult time manipulating triad locks. The lock does have a very deep plunger. You've really got to press that lock down to get it to unlock, and it does have a real strong spring tension. So it is physically a more difficult lock to disengage. Alright, so lock strength to the ColdSteel, lock ease and smoothness to the Spyderco. Now, the next big thing on an everyday carry knife is how you carry it. Alright, both of these knives are lightweight. The edge and weight going to the Spyderco by 2/10 of an ounce, which is negligible really, but it is lighter. The handle is narrower on the Spyderco in the open and the closed position. The profile on the ColdSteel is wider. All right. Open and close. So if you're one of those people that you stick your hand down in your pocket, your knife is in the corner of it, and the knife is so wide and your pocket's so narrow you can't get your hand down in there, you're probably going to prefer the Spyderco. Me, I do not carry anything in my knife pocket. That is my standard carry system. The only thing in my front right hand pocket is my knife ever. So the width doesn't matter, and I'm not one of those people that walks around with their hand in their pocket all the time. I like to have my hands out of my pocket where they're not trapped. Alright, so the Spyderco is a little bit more narrow if you prefer that, and one big difference is in the thickness of the handle. You can obviously see the Spyderco is much thicker than the ColdSteel, even though it is also a little narrower. So again, you know what, guys, these two are so close to each other, it really doesn't matter. Everybody's going to have their personal opinion. To me, that's a wash too. The biggest thing about the carry on these two knives, in my opinion, is the pocket clip. Alright? I have really grown to appreciate a smaller pocket clip, because being right-handed and having the pocket clip on the right-hand side, the back side of the knife in standard carry mode, that puts that pocket clip straight into the palm of your hand. I do not like having a big, wide, long pocket clip poking into my palm. In that essence, I prefer the much smaller. You can see it is much shorter. It is more narrow, the pocket clip on the ColdSteel. That said, the pocket clip on the Spyderco is a fantastic design. I really like folders that have a plain stainless pocket clip with no coating that is polished. It glides in and out of your pocket. It's not hard on your pocket material. It's not hard on your hand. I'm not saying that this pocket clip is uncomfortable in hand at all. I am not saying that. I'm just saying that I prefer the smaller pocket clip of the ColdSteel. They both really, they're the same basic design overall. They're a stamped steel bent pocket clip. The ColdSteel carries maybe an eighth of an inch deeper. Neither one would be considered deep carry by any means, which I do not care about at all. I live in the Southeast. Majority of men that live in my area carry pocket knives, although most of them don't carry anything as nice as these two. Okay, so the deep carry is not that big of a deal, even though I prefer the polished pocket clip on the Spyderco for ease of use. I do prefer the smaller pocket clip on the ColdSteel, and it does carry about an eighth of an inch deeper. Again, that eighth of an inch is not that big of a deal. Some people may not like this smaller pocket clip. They may prefer this longer pocket clip. Neither one of them has any issues at all. I will say this on this ColdSteel, you typically, with ColdSteel, it's more coarse G10 like they use on the Recon series, for instance. The pocket clip tension against the really coarse G10 can cause some issues withdrawing it from your pocket, although that's easily fixable multiple different ways, and I've covered that in my Talwar review video. If you want to check that out, the ColdSteel Talwar folder, I covered that issue. But both of these really have a finer texture G10 on them, and it's pretty much exactly the same, the texture. To my fingers, it feels exactly the same. Another way that these two knives favorably compare with each other. My God, these are fantastic knives. All right, so I don't even know why I'm doing this video. These knives might as well be the same thing. Most people are going to choose one or the other based on brand loyalty, aesthetics, and lock type. Okay? Both brands are fantastic brands. Both of them are good looking knives. And both of them have a great lock on them, even though they're different. I don't see how you can lose with either one of these, and that's why I say a knife enthusiast should have one of each of these in their collection. Now, we're not going to end this without saying something bad about these knives. They both have the same quality issue. All right? Both of them have the same quality issue, and I'm going to show you. Neither one of these knives is perfectly centered. Neither one is perfectly centered. The ColdSteel is closer than the Spyderco, and it is easier to adjust the pivot. On my Paramilitary 2, I don't know if Spyderco puts red Loctite on these or not. It is a two-sided pivot. You need a tool for each side. And I'm telling you right now, I have a nice set of Torx drivers that I can get on it with and get plenty of torque on. I cannot budge that pivot. I cannot budge it. I cannot adjust it. I can't. I have put enough pressure on it to where any second it feels like that the screw is going to strip out. I cannot put any more pressure on it. I cannot get that centering any better than it is. Now, is it terrible? No, it's not terrible. And the action is really good. So, I'm not going to sweat it. Not too much. The centering is a little bit better on the ColdSteel, and the action is just as good. So, again, that slight issue with both of them, it's really funny that both of these knives are pretty much equal in every way, even in slight issues from the factory. You know what? This has not been much of a knife fight at all, guys. It's really been sort of laughable to me that I'm even comparing these two knives, and that's really the point of this video. I have seen so many people argue over these two knives. Most of what you see on the internet, on Facebook, Instagram, is absolute worship of the Paramilitary 2. And it is deserving of it. It is a fantastic design, in my opinion, the best design that Spyderco has ever done. In my hand, it is more comfortable than any Spyderco I've ever handled, and I've handled pretty much every model they've made for the last 10 or 15 years. I sold Spydercos for a living. I've handled them all, played with them all. But in my opinion, it is the best design that they have ever done. It is a fantastic knife, and it is a fantastic everyday carry piece. The ColdSteel American Lawman, I think, is not getting the attention that it should. This is, in my opinion, the best everyday carry design that ColdSteel has ever done. There's quite a few ColdSteel folders that I like, but none of them are as good an everyday carry design as the American Lawman. And that's why it's on the table in front of you with that Paramilitary 2, who would be considered the undisputed champ, maybe. And I'm saying that that is arguable, that these knives are so close to each other in size, weight, fit and finish, materials, all of that. All of that. At the end of this Friday night cold beer knife fight, you're going to have both of these knives in the center of the ring holding their hands up as winners. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this, and wait till next Friday. We'll do something crazy next Friday for Friday night cold beer knife fight. God bless.